Well, to talk more now about Secretary of State John Kerry's trip abroad, we're joined by Robert Schadler, a foreign policy analyst and former managing editor of the Political Science Reviewer. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
When we look at John Kerry's itinerary and the meetings he will be holding on his trip, I guess it would be fair to assume that the focus initially is going to be on Syria.
Yes, I think so. He's visiting London for probably a general discussion with officials, Berlin with some youth, Paris with officials on Mali, and then after that it's preeminently Syria and Rome, Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the Qatar and the Emirates, and that preeminently will be Syria.
And will he be looking for some kind of coordinated response, the United States with its allies, both in Europe and the Middle East, towards how they handle the situation in Syria? Because thus far, they've not shown much evidence that they know what they're doing in Syria.
Well, I think that's a fair comment. The need for more effective intelligence about things like who are these Syrian rebels and who is dominant among them and what's likely to emerge isn't entirely clear. And until that becomes somewhat clearer, a coordinated effort is a complicated thing. So I think he billed it as a listening tour, and so he may be listening for what other people know and what other people think might be done.
Two places he will not be going to, Israel and the occupied territories.
Well, I think one has to be always a little skeptical about what diplomats say, but I think on this occasion it's pretty much what they said. Israel just had elections, they're forming a government, so it would, one, be complicated to go just now. And President Obama is scheduled to visit later this spring for his first trip. And so the first trip of a new Secretary of State is not to upstage the president that chose him. So I think that makes it pretty plausible that he would not go to Israel, even though he's in the area.
Right, particularly when you have a situation like Israel and the occupied territories, because one of the biggest challenges that Hillary Clinton faced when she was Secretary of State was that much of that kind of policy was run by the White House, not by the State Department. Is that something that Kerry is going to face as well?
I think so, and perhaps even more so. It looks like Obama's second administration cabinet generally has less strength on their own. If you look at Hillary Clinton and Robert Gates particularly, they had pretty strong standing in their own right. And even then, it was the White House largely running the show. And I think the second administration will be even more so that way.
The other thing, of course, is we've seen, what's come to be known as the Arab Spring. The White House is not altogether happy about how some of the revolutions in some countries have turned out. Will it be looking very closely? I mean, he's going to Egypt. He's also be going to Qatar and to the United Arab Emirates, as well as Saudi Arabia. Will he be talking to leaders there and saying, how do we handle this? Because in some instances, we've got people in power now who are not exactly friendly to the United States.
True. And I think it's a combination that Kerry broadly will have to develop, again, both greater intelligence about who all these various factions are, and it's not a single group of people. Many of them, having been suppressed before, have little experience and probably a lot of disagreements among them. And a public diplomacy problem. For example, the Gallup just had the approval of the U.S. leadership at 4%. So if we want them to be democratic, we also want them to be at least somewhat sympathetic to our point of view.
Okay, 4%, almost non-existent. Robert Schadler, thanks for joining us.
Okay, thank you.